Welcome back to the Privacy Report, the place where we move beyond just reacting to the latest headline security threat. We're going to talk about building structural strategies that actually deliver resilience.
It's such a crucial shift. For too long, organizations have just been in this reactive posture.
Completely.
A new zero-day exploit drops, or there's a big regulatory announcement, and everyone just scrambles.
Yeah, that constant fire drill mode, it's exhausting. And I mean, it's just not effective in the long run.
Not at all.
Exactly. What we need is a blueprint, really. A way to stay secure, compliant, and, resilient in a world where these digital threats are evolving, daily?
Literally daily.
And that blueprint, that structured way of looking at the whole picture is what we're diving into today. Enterprise risk management or ERM.
And ERM is what takes security out of that purely technical silo and really weaves it into every single business decision.
Yeah.
For you, the listener, understanding ERM is probably the ultimate shortcut to being well-informed about all those complex interconnected threats facing your data.
Right.
And it explains why it's so mission critical for both compliance and just basic customer trust.
Absolutely. And if you want more insights like this, detailed reports, analysis, things like that, don't forget you can subscribe to our email newsletter. Just head over to theprivacyreport.net.
Okay, let's unpack this then. We hear the phrase risk management all the time, right? Usually it's tied to finance or insurance. But when we add that word enterprise, what really changes? How do we define ERM today in the context of privacy and cybersecurity?
Well, what's fascinating is how much the scope has just ballooned. ERM really started back in the 90s, and it was primarily focused on financial reporting, internal controls. Very narrow. But today, it's a holistic framework.
Yeah.
It's used to understand and manage risks across an organization's entire operation. I mean, from the server room all the way to the supply chain. Its core function is really alignment.
Alignment.
It demands that every decision about risk, whether you accept it, avoid it, mitigate it, it has to align with the overall goals of the business. So it forces everyone, not just the CSO, to kind of speak the same language when it comes to potential threats.
Exactly.
You mentioned frameworks. Are companies building these programs from scratch, or are they leaning on some kind of external guidance?
Oh, they rely heavily on established guidance. It just gives them credibility and structure.
Yeah.
You tend to see two major frameworks pop up again and again.
Right.
One is the NIST Risk Management Framework, the RMF.
Okay, I've heard of that one.
It's very popular, especially in regulated industries, because it's so process-oriented. It really emphasizes continuous monitoring and dictates specific actionable security controls.
And what's the other big one?
That would be ISO 31000. It's a bit different. It's less prescriptive.
How so?
ISO 31000 gives you international guidance on the principles of risk management.
Huh.
So the governance structure, the mandate, the general flow. A company might choose ISO if they need a really flexible model for different regulatory environments, globally. NIST is more for when you need that disciplined, almost checklist-driven approach.
That distinction is key. It's not one size fits all. But I guess no matter which framework they pick, the huge shift in the last decade is that cybersecurity and data protection, they didn't just join the list of risks.
They dominate it. Absolutely. You look at any global risk assessment from the big firms, and cyber risk is just perpetually at the top.
Right. It's always number one.
Often ahead of things like geopolitical instability or economic downturns. And that just reflects the reality that for a modern company, digital assets are its most valuable resource.
And therefore, its greatest liability.
Exactly. A data breach isn't a technical inconvenience anymore. It's a catastrophic business event.
So because ERM is a framework, that implies it's an ongoing process, right? Not a one-time audit you stick in a binder.
That is the number one place organizations trip up. They treat it like a project with a start and an end date.
Right.
But ERM is cyclical by its very nature. It's designed to give leaders full, updated visibility into risk at all times. It's a living strategy.
Okay, let's drill down into that cycle, those 6 steps. But let's not just define them. Let's talk about where people go wrong with each one. So step 1 is just identify.
Identification. And the mistake here is thinking too small, focusing only on the obvious things, like laptops and the main servers.
Okay.
True identification means mapping out all of it. Shadow IT, where sensitive data actually lives, like all those customer records and shared drives, and even your vendors' systems. If you don't know what exists, you can't protect it.
Right. You can't protect what you can't see. So once you've identified it, you move to assess.
Precisely. Assessment is where you determine 2 things. The probability, how likely is this threat, and the impact, if it happens, What's the damage?
And where's the friction point there?
The impact calculation. Too many teams use vague labels like medium or high. ERM demands you get specific. Use financial metrics.
You mean like actual dollar figures?
Actual dollar figures. What's the potential lost revenue? The cost of litigation? The expected regulatory fine? If you can't put a number on it, the C-suite won't take it seriously.
That makes sense. And that leads directly to step 3, prioritize, which is where the budget meets reality.
Prioritization is where that alignment really happens. You have to focus your finite budget and your team's time on the high likelihood, high impact risks first.
Not the easy stuff.
Exactly. A common failure is prioritizing the low-hanging fruit just to get a quick win, even if the business impact is minimal. ERM forces you to tackle the big, scary problems head-on.
Okay, so once it's prioritized, we get to mitigate. This is the action phase.
Right. Implementing controls, policies, technology. But mitigation is more than just buying new software. The key failure here is what I call control creep.
Control creep.
Yeah, implementing these complex, expensive security tools that don't actually reduce the quantifiable business impact all that much. ERM forces you to ask, does this multi-million-dollar box actually lower our risk exposure, or could we do it with a cheaper policy change or better training?
That's a great point. And then the last 2 steps, keep the wheel turning. Monitor and review, and then communicate.
Monitoring means setting up metrics, key risk indicators that constantly track your controls and the threat landscape. An assessment that's 6 months old is basically useless.
And communication, that feels like the one that's so often broken.
It is. It's the language barrier. Tech teams talk in CVE scores and patching cycles. The executive team needs to hear about legal liability and shareholder value.
So ERM is the translator.
It forces that translation of technical risk into business terms. And that's how you get the funding. That's what keeps it a living strategy and not just a dusty binder on a shelf.
Okay, now that we get the process, let's talk about the scope. You said ERM is holistic. Can you walk us through the main categories of risk it has to manage?
Certainly. I mean, we still manage the classic operational risks, infrastructure outages and things like that. But the modern discussion is really dominated by 5 interconnected categories.
Yeah.
First, obviously, are the direct cybersecurity threats. So ransomware, phishing, insider misuse, the usual suspects.
And second, I'm guessing, is the rapidly changing world of compliance risks.
Right. That's a huge one. These are the risks tied directly to regulatory failure. Think GDPR fines, ICOPIA violations, that growing patchwork of state privacy laws.
A single breach could trigger multiple failures, then.
Oh, absolutely. Then you have operational risks. These are often process failures, but they have a cyber root now.
Like what?
A critical cloud misconfiguration. That's a human error, but it's catastrophic. Or a failed business continuity plan. And then there's the big one, third-party risk.
Every vendor, every API.
Every single one extends your risk boundary. And finally, the layer that ties it all together, and often the biggest loss, is reputational risk.
That's that damage multiplier.
That's it. A data breach, or even just the perception you're not careful with data, can wipe out years of brand equity overnight. ERM helps you quantify that, so it's not a vague threat, it's a line item.
And this is where that aha moment happens for business leaders, right? It's the translation of a technical issue into a clear business impact that, well, that demands a budget.
That translation is the core value proposition. Let's take a simple example, a weak password policy. A network admin sees that as an IT problem.
A headache. High ticket count, user complaints.
But ERM frames it as a direct threat to regulatory compliance. If sensitive data gets exposed because of weak access controls, that's not an IT failure.
It's a compliance failure with a 6 or 7-figure fine attached.
And legal fees. The business impact is monetary and immediate.
Or what about shadow IT? Employees using unapproved SaaS tools? IT departments used to just see that as an inefficiency.
A nuisance, yeah. But ERM makes it brutally clear. Shadow IT creates massive blind spots. If the security team doesn't know where the customer data is, they can't protect it. And attackers actively hunt for these weak spots.
So the risk isn't just inefficiency, it's a catastrophic operational failure. You lose data governance.
You completely lose it. And that third-party risk, with a vulnerable SaaS tool, it's the clearest example. It's a direct line to exposed customer data and a damaged brand. ERM ensures that fixing that vendor issue is a top priority because the business consequence is so incredibly high.
It stops security from being seen as just a cost center.
And starts treating it as a core function for maintaining revenue and reputation.
That really clarifies why the C-suite needs to be in the loop. But let's talk implementation. There's this assumption that ERM is only for, giant multinational corporations. How does ERM differ from what a lot of medium-sized companies might already be doing?
That's a great question because a lot of people think they're already doing risk management. The key difference is scope and accountability, or more specifically, coordination failure.
What do you mean by that?
Traditional risk management is departmental. It's siloed, legal drafts the policy, HR does insider threat training, and IT runs the firewalls. They often don't talk to each other.
And those gaps between the silos are where things go wrong.
That's exactly where attackers find their way in. Imagine legal drafts a new data retention policy for GDPR, but they don't talk to IT about the technical cost of actually implementing it.
Or HR offboards an employee, they disable their key card, but the IT ticket to revoke their cloud access gets missed.
That's the classic example. ERM is the governance layer that forces that cross-functional accountability. It makes sure legal, HR, and IT are all working from the same prioritized risk map.
So ERM sits on top of those programs. It doesn't replace the CISO, but it makes sure their work is properly resourced and aligned with what the CEO wants.
Precisely. It's the conductor of the orchestra.
Okay, so if I'm running a company with, say, 150 employees and a small IT team, implementing the full NIST RMF sounds daunting.
It sounds like a massive bureaucracy, yeah.
So how do you do an ERM light, something that's actually actionable?
It is definitely not an all-or-nothing deal. Small teams can and absolutely should adopt a lightweight approach. The key is just consistent repetition, not complexity.
Let's detail those steps for ERM light, because I think this is where it becomes real for most of our listeners.
Okay, so step one. Simplify the identification step. Just create a shareable list of all your digital assets and data types. A simple spreadsheet works fine, but you have to categorize the data by sensitivity. Is it PII, financial info, or just public knowledge?
Right, and then you connect that inventory to potential threats.
Step two. For each of your high-sensitivity data types, just identify what could realistically go wrong. Don't brainstorm every possible crazy threat. Focus on the top three. A phishing attack, a cloud misconfiguration, an employee mistake. Keep it simple.
Okay, and step three is ranking. How do small teams do that without, a dedicated financial modeling team?
Use a simple 1 to 5 scale. 1 for likelihood, 1 for impact. But the impact score has to be tied to a business consequence. A 1 is a minor hiccup, a 5 is we're out of business and facing fines.
And you just multiply them.
Yep. Risk score equals likelihood times impact. Oh. Anything that scores 15 or higher, that's your immediate focus.
That makes prioritization basically instant. So step 4 is apply basic protections to those high-score risks.
And focus on the biggest security bang for your buck. Enforce multi-factor authentication everywhere. Encrypt sensitive data. And be really rigorous with least privilege access. Focus your effort where it matters most.
And finally, step 5, to make sure this doesn't just get filed away.
You have to review that risk list quarterly. Ask yourselves, did we actually implement MFA everywhere? Is our data still encrypted? The risk landscape changes so fast, an annual review is just not enough anymore for most businesses.
That idea of continuous vigilance, that really is the goal, isn't it? To bring this all together, then, the objective is to reduce both the likelihood and the impact of a breach by forcing you to prioritize security work based on clear, quantifiable business need. And that, in turn, strengthens trust.
Precisely. And if we can leave you with one final thought today, it's this. By viewing security controls through that business impact lens, which ERM forces you to do, privacy protections automatically get the investment and attention they deserve.
So it's not an optional expense anymore.
It becomes a core mechanism for maintaining organizational stability and your competitive advantage.
That's a powerful thought to end on. Thank you so much for joining us for this in-depth look at enterprise risk management.
My pleasure.
We hope this has given you a clearer, more proactive view of cybersecurity strategy. If you enjoyed this discussion, please be sure to like and subscribe to The Privacy Report. We appreciate you tuning in. This episode was made with the assistance of AI.